So anyone with a knee problem, a knee issue, usually go through 3 stages that we see over and over. And if they are in a certain stage and they're not getting the results that they want, they usually missed the results in the previous stage. So if they're trying to return to sport, they've missed the rebuild section. If they're struggling in the rebuild section, they've missed the rejuvenate section. So on Monday we went through rejuvenate, and if you haven't watched that, I'd recommend you go watch that. Today we're going to be going through the rebuild section. So this is actually going to be rebuilding joint dominance, so joint strength itself, the knee ability directly, and then rebuilding mobility, range of motion. So we've had people come to us 7-8 months post ACL meniscus surgery when they've been cleared by physios and stuff to be able to strength train. And there's two types of people. There's people that have been using our stuff online and putting that in the previous 7-8 months while doing the stuff with their physios, and they're focused on rebuilding range of motion within the knee and rebuilding joint strength itself, the actual knee joint itself, because the connective tissue inside the knee, the ligaments, the cartilage, the tendons, all that kind of stuff does have anabolic properties in the same way that muscles do. They won't grow as big as muscles. You won't see me walking around with like massive patellar tendons, but they do get really, really strong pound for pound. And then you have the second type of person who's focused on rebuilding muscle strength, rebuilding hip strength, so your leg extensions, your Bulgarian split squats, all that kind of stuff, which I'm not saying are bad again, but I am saying if they've done that first and then they come to us and they can't even squat halfway with their knee because their knee can't do it, not their muscles, then they have a much harder time than the people that have done the opposite. So if we focus on rebuilding that range of motion first, rebuilding the joint integrity first, and then packing the muscle and the hip power on top of that after, once they are sound, it's going to be so much easier for the person to be able to get to where they want to get. Because let me tell you this, the range of motion and the connective tissue take longer to build than the other stuff does, right? So the further you go into the knee, the less blood supply it has. That means the less anabolic it's going to be. It does still have anabolic properties, but it's going to be harder to actually stimulate that growth right deep down, like the cartilage, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, if you watch my rejuvenate stuff, we know that by flooding loads and loads of blood, that helps. But we can also target the joint itself in a specific way. So if we look, every inch we go more over the toe, the more pressure is going to be actually placed on the knee, right? So if we look at a Poliquin step up here, like this is a very joint dominant movement. So my muscles may be able to handle the movement, they've got no pain, but the joint is going to be the limiting factor. The ACL, the patellar tendon, anything inside the knee, if they can't handle it, then you're going to have pain, you're going to have flare-ups, right? So you do want to be able to regress these to your current level, but we do want to start working on this. So if we focus on the connective tissue itself first, and it takes longer to build, then when we do go to pack on the muscle, which is going to come anyway with the stuff that we're doing, eventually, then it's going to be so much easier for us to then make absolute bounds on the muscle, and we're going to feel so much healthier than it is if we just focus on the muscle before trying to help the connective tissue out. And the same goes for range of motion as well. If you pack on loads of muscle in a shortened range of motion, it's going to be harder to rebuild that range of motion than it is if you just focus on it first. As a child, we just have the ability to go down and to do a deep squat and be absolutely chilling, right? But as we age, we sit in more chairs, we get stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, it's then harder to rebuild. It'll be easier to just maintain the squat by using it all the time as a child all the way up into adulthood, rather than now trying to rebuild it, right? So if we then focus on the range of motion first and then build the strength in the short range of motions after, our knee's going to have a much better time as well, because it takes longer to rebuild the range of motion than it does to pack on the muscle and the hip power. I can increase my box squat every week by 5 kilos, right? Maybe less, maybe more, depending on the person. But if you try and put 5 kilos on a step up every single week, or even a little bit more, mate, the connective tissue cannot adapt that quickly, right? So we need to focus on that stuff first and then build the muscle alongside it for sure. So we're still doing the leg extensions and that kind of stuff at the same time, but we're building that joint strength at the same time, because the muscles place force on the knee. For example, when we extend our hip, we go forward, but you see there, as I try to decelerate, that is no longer the glutes, it's no longer the hips, right? It's that knee that needs to decelerate, right? So if we're producing all of this strength in box squats, in Bulgarian split squats, and RDLs, all this kind of stuff, building our hip power, and we put all that force in, but then we haven't built the connective tissue inside the knee, or the VMO, or the areas that need to be decelerating with, oh, knee's gone, right? Knee's gone. So if we build the opposite way, because majority of knee injuries happen in deceleration because it is more knee. So if we have a knee injury, we need to build the opposite way. We need to build the knee before we build the hip, right? I can hop up on this crossbar now, jump down, and my knees can handle it, right? I can absorb that force. So I can handle more force through my knees than I can produce. And that's how I stay healthy in football, right? So that's what we want to do. Focus on rebuilding joint dominance, rebuilding mobility. Let me explain joint dominance. I went on a big rant there, so let me explain it in a bit more detail. Joint dominance, if you think about kids, they can get up on something that's 2 times their body height, jump down, absolutely chilling, right? But if I get up here on the crossbar and I jump down, adults will be like, oh. But kids don't have massive muscles, so they have healthy joints. I would bet a kid would be able to jump down off that height more than a bodybuilder would, who's been just focusing on muscle, right? The bodybuilder will probably be scared. What does that mean? It means the joint, the connective tissue itself is so important. And we build that through joint dominant movements. For example, step up. For example, deep knee bends. The more the knee goes over the toe, more pressure on the knee, right? But we don't want to work through pain, because if we're working through pain, that means we're doing more damage than good. To a certain extent, you can work through a tiny bit. But again, if we can find a pain-free area, amazing. We have so many good solutions that we can, right? If the step up's causing pain, do concentric only sled. Same position, it's going to cause less pain. And then for the back of the knee, you have stuff like Nordic curls, which are going to be strengthening the tendons and the ligaments in the back of the knee as well. So we have these joint dominant movements, which don't mean that they don't use muscle. Obviously I'm using my quad to extend my knee, but it means the connective tissue at the same time is being strengthened. Then you have the mobility side of stuff. Mobility just means strength through a range of motion, right? So by creating more mobility, that means we have more strength, so I can control these ranges of motion rather than just having access there. Like most of you could probably pull your heel up to your bum, maybe. But can you actually contract and get your knee up to your bum? Can you control through that range of motion, right? And that's what we want to rebuild first. And we do that through squats. We do that through HIIT split squats. We do that through using floss bands and just getting tiny bit more range, tiny bit more range, tiny bit more range. That's the rebuild section. Obviously, there's going to be points as well where we are going to start doing a little bit of the faster forces, but that's going to be more in the return to sport stuff. But those can scale back as well. So you have elements of each stage in each of the stages. So you have elements of rejuvenate in rebuild. You have elements of return to sport in rebuild. You have elements of rebuild in return to sport. You have elements of rejuvenate in all of them. The only one that I would say that there is not an element of in is like return to sport and rejuvenate. Because like if you do faster forces, you just can't control whether that's going to have an issue on your knee rather than doing something really, really slow in like the rejuvenate phase. You have more control over that. So I wouldn't really put anyone on faster stuff in the rejuvenate phase. Hope that helps. I know I talk fast. I know I just splurged a lot of information, but if it does help, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any questions about it, please again, let us know in the comment section. We take people through these stages. We help people build strength, mobility, and plyometric ability. We don't fix anything medical. We are not medical experts, but we use exercise progressions to give people more ability so they can handle more demand, okay? Let's make ballers bulletproof again.